Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. I'm Bob Easter. I serve as the chairman of the External Advisory Board for the ADM Institute for Post-Harvest Loss. And we've now come to what those of us that have been involved in the planning of this exercise consider to be perhaps the most important activity we will do here. And I want to begin by just expressing my appreciation for what I view as a large number of participants who've remained with us, who've been actively engaged throughout, and you're here this morning to be a part of a process to develop a roadmap. And I alluded to that in the comments that I made at the opening ceremony, but we know where we are today, and we have a sense of where we need to be, and the question is, how do we get there? And the question that some might be asking, well, who put you in charge of the world, ADM Institute? And I don't think we intend to say that we're necessarily in charge of the world, but my sense is, and this follows the conversations that took place yesterday afternoon in this room, that there is forming around this issue a very significant community of practice. And the effort today is to try to bring consensus around some of the areas that need to be emphasized within that community as we each go about in our own areas of responsibility trying to advance the cause, and perhaps shedding some light on those areas that may not be nearly so important. So that's the objective for today, and Dr. Kalita will come at this point and describe the process we're going through. So, Prasanta.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Did you guys have enough coffee this morning? You need a lot of it, because this is where, we will go over what we are going to do in our short term, medium term, and long term. Each of you, I'm sure, have attended so many sessions, talked to colleagues that you have known, or you have made new connections here and made new friends out there. So there would be something that is boiling in your mind, one or two or three things, what needs to be done? I can do this. One thing that for me personally, what I heard, we haven't engaged the government in anywhere. So those kind of things that you all have some burning questions. So right after me, I'm going to invite Professor Toby Peters to go over what are you going to actually do, the purpose of the roadmap, and how we are going to lead you through that, or help you to lead us through that process and form a kind of a document. So with that, I also promised on the very first day that on Wednesday morning, we'll remind you again in the last 2 days, what have we heard? And some of you might say, oh, we already know about these things. We already know about this. And we are not saying that's what we are going to do, all of it, but this is just a knowledge base, what we have heard, what we have shared, and what we told in last 2-3 days to the rest of the group here. So as you see the size of the letters, bigger are the letters, more we have heard, more presentations talked about that. So storage, harvest, approach, those things, critical, systems, vegetables, aflatoxin, transport, as you go by that thing, the size of the letters, those are the topics we have heard over and over and over and over again. So now let's go to more specific, maybe on the day number 1, I showed that yesterday. These are the ones that we have heard on the very first day. We talked about losses happen, they are preventable, and we need to engage government. The intervention should be market driven, and so on and so forth. What did we hear yesterday? Let's go to the next slide. So on the second day, again, look at that. Yesterday, a lot of new words came out. Community, we heard a lot about community. We heard about, hermetic bags again and again. We heard a lot about tomatoes. We heard a lot about storage. Again, storage, drying, those have been very consistent. We heard about cold. Yesterday, there are a lot of discussions on cold, drying, moisture. All these things came again. And if you overlap the very first day, and yesterday's discussions, many of the same things repeat. Anyway, so some of the more specifics that came yesterday is need to have more moisture meter. A lot of people are talking about that. We need to have more moisture meters for smallholder farmers. The storage, that's the main cause for losses and main focus of interventions. This is coming over and over again. The storage, and we did, in our ADM Institute, we did several strategic formulation meeting. We call it SFM in India and Brazil. The storage and drying, they keep coming. You do those, take care of that, you will significantly reduce your post-harvest losses. Then local manufacturing and low-cost technologies are needed. Cold chain transport is very critical for perishables. Need to focus on transferring existing technologies to similar economies. Awareness keep coming, education and training. The post-harvest losses need to be incorporated into extension programs. There was significantly a lot of talks were there yesterday, and establishing a community of practice, which at the final, our panel session that Charlene led, we had some wonderful opportunities for us, and our FAO colleagues, they have shown you how you can log in, how you can participate, and it's very simple, and you will be part of this whole big community. So to reiterate what came from FAO, let me request you again, please, everybody, when you go, before you leave this place, at least sign it in. It just take couple minutes. Sign it and be part of this process. So we heard about this information. So now, when we go for this roadmap development session today, which Toby and Dr. Dirk Meyer, Professor Toby Peters and Dirk Meyer will be discussing about that, these are the information you should think about. This is your base. We are also giving this information to you in each of these tables, not right now, but when we break into groups, you will get this information there. So you will be discussing that, and then we'll come back, all these groups again, and then see where is the consensus. Everything is a single component, but we need to bring it to the whole systems. You have heard about that. We have these pieces together again, very first day from this distinguished panel members. We have these singular pieces. How do we bring them up back into our whole system? Each of these things that you'll be talking about. We will go through that, and our desire is by the end of this whole session, we will be able to come up with a consensus. We'll define some path, and then we'll go forward. Some of these things we will talk about at the end of this discussion session. So, I'm so happy to see all of you. Yesterday I was a little afraid that, after 2 days of very hard and intensive meetings and all, you probably are going to take a tour of the Vatican City or something like that this morning. But thank you so much for sticking with us and helping us define the future path for post-harvest loss prevention. Thank you very much, and let me invite Professor Toby Peters now.
Thank you. I'm sure Prasanta has woken us all up with a great motivational start. I'm not going to speak for very long. It's really sort of talk about the food loss roadmap and just try and put it in context. I asked Prasanta this morning, what was the one big takeaway from this event? And we talked about many things, but the one he kept coming back to was about engaging government. And that's really interesting, because actually the point of the roadmap is to engage government. It's to give them something which you can talk to them about with consensus and get them to change that dynamic that we saw yesterday. 95% of the research funding at the moment goes into yield. We need to get more money coming into post-harvest food loss development and deployment. And a roadmap, I think, is one of the key ways to do it. Just to put it in context, we used a roadmap in the UK around the automotive industry, and the result of that was £1 billion of new funding, because it was a very easy way to talk to government about what would be the impact of investment. Is that the clicker? Sorry. Got it, brilliant. So, very simply, we're looking at a roadmap that charts the pathway towards improving lives and livelihood of a large number of smallholder farmers sustainably through a to-be-determined today percentage post-harvest loss reduction of key crops with minimal environmental impact. We're looking to define that to be determined for maybe in 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years. And just before we start, I'd actually like, has anybody got what we think should be the target for post-loss food reduction by 2025, in 10 years' time? How much? Half it. So we want a 50% reduction. Yes? We're going to come back to this figure, but I'd just like to actually put down a marker in the sand before we start the rest of the day. So 50% by 2025. Are we happy with that figure? That's what the roadmap will discuss, but let's put that figure out there on the table. That's the point of what we're going to do today. I just wanted to actually see if there was a figure which people thought we should be targeting. When we come back at the end of the day and we've looked at the roadmap, we can start to review whether that figure should be 30% or whatever. It was just as an interest where we think to start and whether, as we go through the process of the roadmap, is it attainable. So I think that's the purpose of today. So, first of all, I'm not here to do anything more than convene and try and help drive the roadmap process. A few points about it. There probably won't be full agreement, but what we want to try and do is start to get some consensus around thinking. There is a lot of ground to cover, so during the roadmap sessions, we need to move forward quickly. And the final point is we need to avoid rabbit holes and going down as agenda. So you know I'm interested in cooling, but from the purpose of a roadmap, I park cooling. It's looking at the whole rather than my specific agenda. As I said, the key thing about the roadmap is it helps reach a consensus, provides a mechanism to forecast technology developments and actually therefore focus the investment and where it should be coming, and provides the framework, and within that it specifically identifies potential regulatory barriers. So it's got a lot of jobs to do. In doing those jobs, what it can do is it specifically allows us to then engage with government in a very simple process and actually through that increase the investment to drive innovation, to increase a commitment to policy change, and out of that get increased success. So a roadmap, by identifying activities should be the focus of R&D investment, it becomes a very nice tool to go and talk to government, and as Prasanta said, that's one of the key things we need to do, is engage government in the thinking. Where we want to get today is not all the detail which goes behind. There are many sort of levels of detail we've got to deliver with a roadmap. But what we want today is get the high-level thinking and actually try and end up with a 1- or 2-page document which we can use to talk to the key non-technical audiences. We have to remember that the governments are not technical, but this is where we can put down the key messages to actually get them engaged to put the funding and the support in place that we know is so required. From my perspective, the key area which we need to focus on is you've got to start with the why. We've got to make sure that we're very clear what is the why. We want to look at what is the when, the timeline when we can deliver, and then the solutions and the what. But really important is very much is what we want to achieve by when, so that that's what the government can buy into. So broadly, working with Prasanta and the team of Illinois, we sort of identified, we think, sort of 4 timelines. One, what can we do which is here now in production? What things can we use today to make a difference? What are sort of coming down the road in 3 to 5 years that we can use? And then, where is there a step change required in investment, in research, to make a difference, which is sort of the 5 to 10 year period. But equally, we also want to understand what is required in 10 years' time, and where should the academic community in particular be focusing their research, so that you've got the longer term big changes in development now to come on stream. So it's not simply about what is available today, it's also thinking about what do we want to be investing in today to deliver the technology advances that can be deployed in 10 years' time. And to me, a roadmap is both of those ends of the equation. So I think there are 4 goals today: is to confirm the direction of travel, identify the high-level roadmap themes, develop the high-level content, and critically confirm who does what next. What we want to do today is actually come away not with just a piece of paper, but a very clear action point to take this forward. So, very quickly, the direction of travel, what we're looking at is to try and define where we think the losses could be reduced over the short term, which, as you can see, is maybe over the next 5 to 10 years, the medium term and the long term. And that has to come out of, as we've heard earlier, this is about identifying what we think is achievable, but also looking at the stretch targets, not simply what's available today. The team at Illinois have identified 5 key areas: so harvesting, drying and storing, transporting, processing, and retail. And the workshops, I think the idea is that each colour group will look at one of those themes. But as we heard from CD, and it's absolutely important, we've also got to recognise that it's not a case of any one of those areas. We've got to do all 5, and they've got to be system level and integrated thinking if that actually is going to have the impact. But the process today, I think, Prasanta, is people are going to break out into each of those 5 groups. And this list is far too small to read on a screen, but the areas that have been defined we think are important is looking at the market, the technology, the policy, the education and training. You might think that there are other areas which need to be discussed, so during the process, identify those. And Prasanta and his team have identified in each one of those some areas where work could be done, but again, your job is to test those, think about it, and develop them. And what we want to end up with, really, say, taking harvesting as an example, will be a very simple grid like that, which shows what, for each of those periods, we can be looking at achieving, and we can use that to talk to people. So on that sort of very quick overview of what I think a roadmap can do, as I said, a roadmap from my perspective is something we can take to governments and funding bodies and give it real clarity to get change in the level of funding and support. And as I said, we did this in the automotive industry. It resulted in £1 billion of investment. I'll pass over to Prasanta to really talk a little bit about the next steps. Sorry, the road.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, Lisa.
Where does cooling fit on that in those 5 groups?
That's what I think each group will discuss. From my perspective, it would fit in transport, processing, retail, but I'm not here to lead it, I'm here for each group, is to stimulate what they think is important in that area.
Thank you, Toby. This, the initial document and the areas that we have identified is not only our ADMI effort. We have a very close group of people that have significantly invested some time. Let me recognize those people. First, Toby Peters from London, Dr. Dirk Meyer from Iowa State, Professor Casey Ting from University of Illinois, Deepak Kumar and Dr. Kathy Parlow, both Kathy Parlow from College of ACES and Deepak's from ADM Institute, Dr. Mike Sikava from ADM, and we have Tony Bennett from FAO. So these people, they have significantly invested time. We had a weekly meeting through Skype, and this is kind of a combine our thoughts that we put together in these documents. So, and also, I forgot to mention there are two people that have taken all the information that was presented here yesterday, day before yesterday, all the panels. They have, after the 2 hard days of work, they did not actually sleep. These two people went to bed at 4 o'clock just to give me those 2 slides. Let me recognize those two outstanding individuals. Dr. Kathy Parlow, would you please stand up? Dr. Deepak Kumar, where are you? Yeah, let's give Deepak. So, I get all the credit and they get all the blame for, from me. So anyway, now let me invite Dr. Dirk Meyer to describe the process.
Good morning. Thank you, Toby, and thank you, Prasanta, for getting us all organized here this morning. When you came in, you're all supposed to have a little color piece of paper. Hopefully all of you gotten. I'm sorry, I can't really see out here without doing this. Did all of you get one? If you did not get one of those little colored sheets of paper, just raise your hand and one of the students and helpers will get you one. So there's a few people that don't have one. Just keep your hand up so you can be given one. So anybody have extra ones of those, they will get those to you, okay? Now, like with anything, I know all of you probably have a particular preference to be in a particular breakout group, but it just doesn't work for us when we're that many people to let everybody choose where to go. So we randomly basically gave you those color-coded tabs that identifies your group that we would like you to meet with. And so we'll have 5 groups. We'll have 5 groups that meet. And so the first thing I'd like to do is have the individuals that are going to help us lead those groups come up here to the stage so you all can see them and also want to recognize them for their willingness to help us. So Dr. Marvin Paulson from Illinois, if you want to come up here, Dr. Paulson will lead the harvesting group, and the harvesting group will be the green group, so the green color group. The second group, breakup group, will be led by myself on the drying and storage, and that will be the purple group. And the third group will be transportation logistics. That will be led by Dr. Casey Ting. And as close to orange as I get will be yellow. So that'll be the yellow. Huh? There's no orange, it's the yellow. So if you have yellow, that's orange. So that will meet with Dr. Casey Ting. And then the fourth group will be the processing group. So Dr. Kumar Mallikarjunan will be leading that, and that will be the red group. And then we have a fifth group, which will be led by Dr. Ashap Gulati, which we kind of call the retail or the end of the value chain, and that will be the blue group. So green will be harvesting, drying will be purple, transportation will be yellow, processing will be, what did I say, red? Red, and retail will be blue. So now we're kind of organized, okay? And the other logistics component here is that the harvesting or green group will meet down here. I know this is roped off, but we'll remove the rope area and we'll kind of meet in this section right here. The drying/purple group will meet in this section right here. So the students can kind of line themselves up a little bit. But yeah, but we're not going to break out yet, so it's fine. So, but just so you know. And then we'll have the transportation/yellow group. Thanks for the lights. Let's keep them up. We'll go to the San Francisco room, which was one of the rooms for the breakout presentations yesterday. And the processing red group will go in the cafe area, the bar area, so they'll be in that room. And the blue/retail will go into the Toady room, which I believe is the room on this side where one of the buffets was set up as well. So that way we're broken up into 5 different groups, 5 different areas, and have enough time for conversation. So before you leave, let's just look at the document that we're going to have. So in each one of the rooms or areas, we'll have a few copies of this document that's on the overhead here right now. And so the first thing we'll do within 5 minutes here or less, 9:45, for 1 hour, no more than 1 hour, we'll go into those breakout groups, and you'll have time for the facilitate discussions. The facilitator will ask to have somebody volunteer to be a scribe. We'll have a handout that will have all of this laid out, so notes can be taken on that by at least one of the persons who will gather from each group those notes later on so that we can compile it and create the first draft of the roadmap as a function of all of this input. And then our goal really is once it is compiled, perhaps within a week or two, through the facilitation of the ADM Institute, then we'll put that roadmap draft out to the entire participation of this Congress. And then over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have time for everybody to read, provide input, and we'll go through a couple, 3 drafts and updates, which will all be facilitated through the ADM Institute and their website, so that everybody has had enough time to read it, to give input back, so that after about a 4 to 5 week period, we kind of come to sort of a finalized version of that, and that should give everybody enough time to say, yeah, I had my say, and it's collected in there, and kind of provides this consensus approach that everybody had an opportunity to review and provide input to the document. So that's kind of at least the process that we've agreed to put forward. If you along the way have any other comments or suggestions, let Prasanta or me know, and we'll try to work that in and adjust anything that we're trying to adjust. And again, as Toby said, we're trying to do this as a high-level thing, and as he emphasized, we really would like to have all of us, each of us individuals, to kind of set aside any particular agendas and preference and so forth, kind of think for the greater good of the whole approach.
Each group leader will have 5 minutes to present.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. Thank you. So after the hour, we come back together here in this room, okay? So from your breakout sessions to this room, if you grab coffee or need to go to the restroom, that's our break time too. So we'd like to come back here, which would be at no later than 10:45. So that's kind of the time schedule. From 9:45 to 10:45, that should give us enough time for the breakout time. 10:45 we come back, and each of the groups, whether the facilitators or the scribes or some other volunteer, each group can decide how they want to do that. We'll give 5 minutes feedback from up here from each group about what was discussed in general. And then we will have an open discussion roughly from about shortly after 11 o'clock until the noon hour. So that just give us an open discussion for up to 45 minutes, that anything that was discussed and anybody wants to engage a little bit further on what was presented or what was discussed in the breakout group can be brought up before we then wrap things up and break for lunch, which is the end of the Congress after the closing remarks. So that's kind of the process for the morning. So then if we're looking at this document coming back on the breakout groups, what we've done is we've kind of laid it out in terms of facilitating the process and make it consistent for everybody involved. Now, question 1 is, what are these targeted intervention areas have been identified on markets, technology, policy, and education. So that starts giving us a matrix, and not necessarily is expected everything is filled out perfectly, but it'll start giving us a matrix on markets. The goal is to increase market value of commodities for smallholder farmers. And we have like 3 bullet points. They're not intended to be exclusive. or complete in any way. They're just sort of to help us stimulate our thinking as to what we're thinking in these patterns. So we're a little bit off here. If you can go down, who's moving the page for me back there? Because I'm not. So then let's go back to this Q question number 1. So if you can scroll that back up for me a little bit, sorry about that. Is then what are the 3 to 5 major causes of post-harvest losses in this stage for each cause, and then do some ranking, and again across this, yes, there we go, now we're on the same page. Ranking, from 1 to 4 being most critical versus being least critical. And then we identify an overall first most critical and overall second most critical target of intervention. And then we go to question number 2A, so scroll down a little bit for me if you would. For the most critical TIA, what are or could be the 3 to 5 best practices or most promising approaches? And again, best approaches, current actors, current impact, targeted communities, and again with notes, so that's kind of outlined. And question 2B is then again for the first most critical, what are the approaches identified that is needed to implement solutions with significant impact? Again, best approaches or solutions, what components are missing, potential actors, and so forth. And again, this is laid out for the scribes in larger paper for taking notes. And then we do the same thing under question 3A for the second most critical TIA. Again, it just starts bringing 1 to 2 priorities up, to the front of things. And that scrolls us through from 3A, and it says 2B, but that's really 3B, so that was a little error here. And then we get to question number 4. Based on the answers to the above questions, by how much can post-harvest losses be reduced by 2050 to improve the quality of lives and livelihoods of a large number of smallholder farmers? And then those are just, to discuss some numbers. What could be some target numbers? And that'll be interesting as to what people will, come up with in those categories by 2020, 2025, 2035, 2050. And then question number 5 would be list 5 to 7 key areas or messages that were not discussed or addressed in this Congress but are needed to sustainably reduce post-harvest. So that kind of opens it up for whatever we haven't captured in the discussions in the earlier questions, to kind of catch everything sort of as a parking lot of thoughts and ideas and whatnot, so that people have an opportunity for that input. And then that brings us to the group presentations. When you go down a little bit further to item D is the map that had been previously, or the diagram that previously shown in terms of just kind of from a roadmap perspective, kind of get towards some goal statements, target statements with regard to post-harvest loss reduction goals over the next 30-some years. And hopefully then all the other things start fitting underneath that. And once we collate it all into a draft and start sharing it, I think it becomes a little bit clearer on how all the information will come together in that regard. Any of the facilitator have any questions? There will be copies of this in each of the rooms on the tables, and extra copies that people can work off from. So, and all of you have done this, so I'm sure we'll be fine. So anything else logistics-wise? So let me go back to those color codes. Which one of the students has blue? You have blue. All right. Blue goes upstairs in the toady room. You know which one that is? Well, go up there to the door. So if you're the blue group, you can go with, what's your name? Matt? Thank you for your help, Matt. So go follow Matt. The topic is retail. The end of the value chain, so the use of the products and commodities and so forth. So it's a good group. If you're blue, you'll want to be in that group, absolutely. All right, who has the red tab? What's your name? Kevin. Okay, Kevin, you go over there, you go out that door upstairs into the cafe. All right, follow Matt. Kevin, over there, the red group. Who has yellow? Anna. All right, keep up the yellow, Anna. If you're yellow, here's Anna. You want to follow her to the Francisco room. Who has purple? Chelsea, right? Purple is right here with Chelsea. And green, Alex, over there. Okay? We're right here. So sorry you don't have to go very far. See you all in 1 hour. All right, we got to set up.